Just waiting for Aaron Long to come. And join us. Hey,
Hey,
Aaron.
Donald. I
Little
hate to
smoke.
do this to you, but I'm gonna have to dip out at 11. I got to go back to the hospital again.
Okay, that's fine.
It's going to be one of those days, I'm afraid. And then we're setting up the Christmas trees and the thank offering, Thanksgiving stuff tomorrow. It's good as I'm ready for this weekend to be over with.
I got you. Anyways, the Mason junk.
I'm glad you finally have started to see some of this stuff.
Oh, it's worse than I thought.
I tried to tell you, I wrote my entire third year thesis on this subject.
Oh, well, now there's this Melvin guy. Um, I just posted on Facebook. I asked if he was back and forth in a very polite way, thanking me for the work I was doing, super polite. And he never fails to mention his degrees, which I'm fine with.
Mhm.
And then he started getting accusatory that I had not sent him away to get his 3 to 4 page paper to me.
Right.
And I sent him my email. I just did it for the fourth time.
Well, now that could be the computer. I know who you're talking about, and he's actually a good guy. I've never met him in person, I just know him online. What he does is he actually works to a degree to try to evangelize Masons to bring them out of Mason.
Oh, okay.
He may just be having some technical difficulties, but he's not a bad guy and he is on our side. He's just, that's what his main focus is. Because me bringing this subject up in historic Christianity probably about 5 years ago actually is what led me into having a conversation with him. He's got his head in the right place. Theologically, he's tight, and he just sees that as his main point of evangelism.
Okay. I don't see why you got to go be a Mason to do evangelism.
No, it's just he's trying to get them out of Masonry.
So then he thinks it's bad.
Yes.
Okay. Well, he was going to send me this 3 to 4 page paper because I don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm open about that. I haven't grown up around it. I've heard of it, but I've never researched it. And then, so I've sent him my email address, and then I just sent it for a fourth time this morning. He got on yesterday's YouTube and accused me of being a coward.
I'll touch base with him.
I'm
Hey, I'll work on
and
getting that
and then
straightened out.
he got really denunciatory, like I'm afraid, I'm a coward, he's really been in combat and shot and killed men in combat. I'm just a Navy chaplain, blah, 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 blah. By the way, I'm a real doctor, not a PhD candidate. Give me a break. So if he's going to be hostile, I will be hostile.
I know.
You know,
I'll work
you
on diffusing that.
you know how I get when I
I
get
do,
nasty.
Donald.
I get mean. I get
Well,
triggered.
Donald, I always laugh when everybody comes after me because people come after me hammer and tongs, and they don't seem to understand that I am actually the peacemaker 9 times out of 10 with everybody. But I get accused of that all the time.
Well,
It's,
you can
it is what it is.
you
Oh,
can
and the answer to the other question you asked me this morning, they're picking up all your videos and stuff off of the public state of the pages.
say that again.
Those spies that are watching you are getting your stuff because it's being put up in groups that are public. If a group is public, anybody can get on it and see what's on there.
Okay, so guys like Robert Desix, he's a Royal Army chaplain. He's in touch with several in the Church of England, and I've gotten several screenshots that includes Lizzie Fenwick. Um, there's some back channeling going on, and Desix is not in either forum,
Mhm.
PBA or LCA, but PBA is public. No, LCA is public.
LCA is public, PBA is private.
So, okay, I got you. I figured that out. Thanks for that clarification. Um, Having done, and we're on Sola Scriptura, which was denied by John Fenwick
Right.
before Arthur Bentley Taylor got up and walked out. And the second question that triggered him was, well, because he wouldn't answer him on Sola Scriptura. And Bishop Arthur Bentley Taylor said, well, are you a three-stool man? At which point, Fenny got up and walked out.
Well, Donald, let me jump in real quick and connect the subjects. All right.
Okay, okay.
You are never, ever going to get any resemblance not only to sola scriptura, but to inerrancy with the Masons. You remember how we talked earlier that with the Papists and even with the Orthodox, you can defend inerrancy, they just add to it.
Right, right, right.
With the Masons, their base doctrine cannot accept inerrancy because with inerrancy comes John 14. And in Masonic doctrine, you have the universal, like I said last on Tuesday, you have the universal fatherhood of God and the universal brotherhood of man. Therefore, if you accept inerrancy, then what you're doing is you're excluding anyone who is not Christian. The Masons believe that if you have a universal fatherhood of God, you have all roads are leading up the same mountain to God. So you can be a Mason and a Buddhist and you can still get to God. You're just traveling a different road. Or you can be a Mason and be a Hindu and still get to God. You're just traveling up another road. It's ultimately why Masonry is much more nefarious than the Papist or the Orthodox or any of them. It's actually closer to what you would get in Pentecostalism, and it is identical to what you get in the mainline denominations and in Vatican II for that matter, because it erases the exclusive claims of Christianity.
Now, but then there's here and there they rise up and say, yeah, but there's room for Trinitarian.
There is room. There is room because they believe all roads lead to heaven. All religions,
But that's not Trinitarian theology.
I understand that. But Donald, here is where my experience with the United Church of Christ is played out in my favor in a lot of these different groups. I did not come from the ghettos. I came from the main line. And in the main line, whether it's UCC or PCUSA or United Methodist or whatever, or the Episcopal Church, or even, like I said, Vatican II Roman Catholicism. Note how I'm making that clarification. You have this idea of ecumenism that is based off of Masonic philosophy that religion is not exclusive, it is inclusive.
Does a Trinitarian type Mason allow for that universalism?
Yes, unless you're part of, there is one Scandinavian group, let's give the devil their due. There is one, and I can't remember what its name is, I remember it's Scandinavian. There is one Scandinavian set of lodges that are exclusively Christian. That said, All other Masonic lodges are universalist. Not universalist as in everybody's going to heaven, universalist in a Pelagian sense, that if you're a good man, you can get to heaven. It doesn't matter whether you're an atheist or whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian.
Now, does that apply to the York Rite, the Scottish Rite?
That applies to all of them, except for that one weird Scandinavian group.
So how can you be a Christian and join that?
Because they bull the frog. They bring you in and they show it to you and they sell it to you as a social club, to use their own words, making good men better.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And then what they do is this is where the degrees come in. They reveal the truth to you slowly. It's where the Gnostic elements of it creep in. It is not Gnostic as in they believe in the demiurge and all that, even though you can. It is Gnostic as in the literal definition of the word. There's a lot of secret knowledge.
This is where I've got to say this has demonic sounds to my ears as a Christian.
It's why I said, Donald, I never thought I would see the day where I would encourage you to buy a papist book. But you really need to get a copy of Taylor Marshall's Infiltration.
I think I do have it.
It is completely written from a papist perspective. Understand that going into it. But it is one of the best modern treatments of what the Masons have done. Because, see, this is a place where we're all on the same side against the same enemy.
Gotcha.
Because
I think I did order it, but I've not read it yet. Okay, go ahead.
But the thing is what you see in the main line and in the post-Vatican II Roman Catholic Church is the triumph of Masonic philosophy. Now, you'll get called a tin hat wearer for saying that because they say, well, the Masons are dying off. The Masons, as an organization, externally don't look as strong as they used to, but they don't have to because they won the battles. They've basically infiltrated all of these structures and they have turned them into their own. So you keep getting stuck in this thing to where you run into it everywhere. All right, in another Facebook group today, I have been dealing with a guy that came on that is trying to make the argument that God did not create ex nihilo, that God created from pre-existent matter, the Mormon argument. And he's saying it was Plato that Plato through Augustine that brought in the concept of ex nihilo. What that is an example of how this Masonic philosophy has crept in everywhere. Because the thing is ultimately, Donald, if you sat down a faithful Orthodox, a faithful Reformed, a faithful Roman Catholic, a faithful Baptist for that matter, and you said, did God create ex nihilo? Guess what?
Yes.
We all agree on that.
Yeah.
But where this philosophy has gotten in is it is allowed for all of this crap to be acceptable. Our critical biblical readings stem from Masonic influence. The critical text of the Bible stems from Masonic readings because all of a sudden what you're doing is you're calling into question absolute truth. If all paths lead to heaven, you can hold any crackpot idea you want as long as you acknowledge there is a God and you have a holy writ that you form your life around. Hence, you can have a Hindu Mason, a Muslim Mason, and a Christian Mason all in the same lodge, All they do is change out the holy text on the altar when they take their vows.
In the same lodge.
In the same lodge. But Donald, look at it in politics. Look at the neocon, neoliberal establishment. It grows out of this Masonic philosophy. And it has all these code words that people don't seem to understand. You really see it start to come to fore with Wilson before World War I, where Wilson starts to talk about making the world safe for democracy. Everybody thinks that's a George Bush thing. Woodrow Wilson originally said it, the progressive movement. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about Teddy Roosevelt and all them. Start to bring this stuff into the governmental sphere. You don't see it with Washington and all of them during the revolution because it really wasn't at this form at that time. Pike really with morals and dogma codified. And then with Wilson and them,
I'm
go ahead.
hoping to get that. I was up at my son's for a while helping him out.
Mm-hmm.
And my VA medicines went there.
Right.
And a friend of mine, Ed Williamson, a Presbyterian elder, it was going to send me Pike's book. I think it's Dogmas and Morals.
Morals and Dogma.
Morals and Dogma, and all of his research papers.
Right.
And it got sent to the Norfolk address. But I have since here before Thanksgiving and for Christmas moved home. I'm here with my wife. We're shifting around among grandkids and
right.
and our own children, and I'm back home here. But I'm hoping so that package went to Norfolk. I'm hoping my son, who's coming down for Thanksgiving, brings my medicines and that package with Pike's book in it because apparently he's a big dog with the Scottish Rite.
Well, Pike is an interesting character. Pike was a damn Yankee that grew up in, like, I think it was Boston, but he was pro-slavery. So he came to the South during the Civil War and he was a general in the Confederate armies. He ends up afterward and even a little before getting heavily involved in Masonry. And he ends up becoming their primary modern prophet. And what you see in modern progressive thought, whether it be in the church, whether it be in the political system, whether you be in any of these other circles, the education system, it is all really the triumph of Pike's Masonic philosophy throughout the world.
All of the different streams, because there seems to be several streams of it.
But Pike codified it. Pike gave it substance. It all feeds in, but Pike ends up giving it a form. He may have been Scottish Rite, but morals and dogma end up forming the mentality. All of a sudden, you get this idea that you see in Mormonism, because Mormonism gets it from Masonry, where the serpent in the garden ends up becoming a good guy, because the serpent is bringing knowledge to the people. You get this rehabilitation of Lucifer, where Lucifer is the light bringer, hence Lucifer in Latin, light bringer. You get this idea to where they are bringing the light into the world. And you see it play out in politics with, like I said, the neocon, neoliberal movements. You see it in the Frankfurt School. You see it in socialism, communism, because all of them were tied into the lodges at one time. You see it in fascism because you see it manifest in the Thule Society, which grew out of the Grand Orient Lodge, the OTO, which developed out of Masonry. You go into any of these different pagan, neo-pagan, what am I looking for? Wiccan, all of them, their structure comes from Masonry. They have 3 degrees. They have all of that. You see it get into the church because primarily in Protestantism, and you're not going to want to hear it because of the Scottish Rite, it got in through Presbyterianism.
I'm told that it's in Presbyterianism.
Right.
And in the
then,
Free Church of Scotland.
well, it came because it came in through Westminster. And it came through the Westminster Assembly, the dissenting brethren and all of them. That's why you'll see it in the Southeast. It's primarily a Baptist thing. And all right, you've got to go back to the mistake Westminster made. Westminster made one key mistake, which
You're
was
talking about the Assembly 17th century?
Yes.
You're saying there's Masons in that?
Yeah. Dig. The deeper you dig, the deeper. Look at what the dissenting brethren did to the assembly.
What do you mean by dissenting brethren?
There were 5 dissenting brethren that brought everything up for argument. It's why there is not a clear-cut statement of polity in the Westminster Confession. Polity and worship are instead shunted off to separate documents. Have you never questioned that?
No.
If you look at the Belgic Confession, if you look at the 39 articles, if you look at comparable confessions, the canons of Dort, they all talk about both polity and liturgy, worship. It may not be a deep discussion, but there is a discussion, there is a head nod. The Westminster Confession, to a degree, is both of the Helvetics talk about polity and they talk about liturgy. Westminster is unique because it does not talk about either liturgy or polity. And it's because the dissenting brethren made sure it wasn't included in. They fought it. They are in the standards, okay? They have a Westminster Directory of Public and Private Worship. They have a form of presbyterial government, but they are not in the confession. They're really not that deeply in either one of the catechisms either. Polity is not in the catechism at all, and worship is only alluded to when they talk about the second commandment. Or the second or the fourth commandment, excuse me. But even then, it's not given any form or any idea. It's more the thou shalt nots rather than the thou shalts.
What's that all got to do with Freemasonry?
Because they had to cut out any sort of structure. Because what the Masons want to do is they want to be able to infiltrate. Whenever you have a structure can establish a counter to it, which is why you will get Presbyterian bodies that are actively against the Masons. You will get confessional Lutheran bodies. You will get Roman Catholic bodies. You will get these bodies that are actively against it, but the polity has to be actively against it. Because you got to remember, these Masons tend to try to draw from the most educated elements of society. At one point in time, I was approached and they asked me to join, but it was sort of like a Mormon missionary or a Jehovah's Witness coming up to me, and they learned to regret that real quick. But if you have a structure, you can fight it. If you do not have a solid polity, and I'm just saying polity in a general term, you have no defense, because then they're going to make arguments to explain to you why they need to be there. These people really are children of their father, Satan. They are silver-tongued devils, and they are well trained in rhetoric. They are well trained in speechifying, so to speak.
I'm finding most of them are just these low levelers who want to be in a social club or a business club or, drinking club or a night out with the boys at the barbecue. that has nothing to do with any sophisticated theological awareness,
All right.
confessing like me. I'm a confessionalist. And
Right.
as soon as they come to me and say I got to take an oath of secrecy, I go, no way.
But Donald,
If they would say you can come in and confess the Westminster standards openly and widely, I might consider it. And that
but
would
they,
include saying Islam is a false religion, Hinduism is a false religion. The mainline churches are not Christian foundationally, and I confess my faith. They wouldn't let me pass the first degree.
right. But Donald, I want you to step out of your church mindset for a moment and get back into your military mindset. Okay. You just said to me that, put the hat on, there we go.
Here we go.
You just said to me that what you're running into is most of them are these low levels that
And my medals. I actually used to wear that, man. Go way up in there, whatever. Go ahead.
but you just said most of them are, it's a social club, it's a drinking club. All right. Donald, would a buck private know what the strategy was?
No,
Would a sailor, just a regular white hat wearing sailor,
nope,
know what the strategy was?
nope.
What were they there for?
They were there to be in the engine room and make the engine work. That's it.
Right. What you're running into, Donald, are your buck privates and your standard sailors.
Good point. Good point. They're not the captain on the bridge.
Right. Hence the degrees. Once you get above third degree, if you continue to progress, no matter what rite you're a part of, they reveal it slowly but surely to you what the greater plan is.
And
They
you
don't
look at it, you
want,
can't say anything about it.
right.
And
They
I'm
don't
told,
want their lower degrees to know what's going on.
I'm told that there's blood curdling, blood chilling oath, some kind of thing that they'll cut your tongue out and all this
Yes,
other.
that if you reveal these secrets, if I reveal these secrets, may my tongue be severed from the inside of my mouth. May the dagger be driven through my heart. May my eye be plucked out as the vulture plucks the flesh.
How can a Christian go up in that kind of system?
Because, Donald, we have abandoned, they have basically, and this is what I've decided I'm going to devote the entire next church year to. Since the church year starts on December 1st.
Okay.
I'm devoting the entire next year to a Christian worldview. At Christ College, I'm getting ready to teach long form classes on Christian worldview, focusing on family, faith, farm, and fatherland,
Yes.
and the application of that.
What's this
Because
Christian college?
it is the online seminary we have started for the ENR Synod. Basically, I am taking the model that Log Cabin set up to where we have the recorded classes. We will have the text and the reading. People can do it for free. And then we're going to have, I am personally finishing out the associates program, because what I want to do with the associates program, I've realized we need to make people readers. So I'm writing one standard textbook currently that covers basic pastoral ministry, basic hermeneutics, basic pastoral theology, basic worship practice, basic theology. And then what I'm going to do, and I'm recording a series of 15-minute courses just so they can get through it. I'm going to do this Christian worldview. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a series of book studies so we can force people to buy books and have a library. Because I've noticed a lot of people, we need to make pastors readers again. They aren't like, trust me, Donald, I've got 3,000 volumes. You've seen my office at the church. You haven't seen the one at the parsonage. Oh, I know.
There's the other side of the room. And I mean, this was before internet.
Right.
Then I got
But-
them all along the other side down to the window, blah, 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 blah,
But,
bread.
but that's neither here nor there. That's what we're doing with that. And it's
What
slow,
happened
but
to Latimer Institute? Are you connected to them?
I can still teach courses there, but because of certain individuals in the House of Bishops, I had to give up my standing in the UECNA, so I have to be invited to do it.
I got you.
Peter invites me to teach whenever I want to teach.
Yeah. Now, this new school, Christ College, is it already up and running?
It's the guts of it all.
Okay.
I'm recording the classes via YouTube right now. I'm getting them up when I've got time to do them because I'm working on writing a textbook. I'm working on getting the 1947 E&R Book of Worship back into print. I'm working on getting the E&R Book of Confessions back. I've got a lot on my plate I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Because the thing is there is not a lot out there to deal with. But no, going back to the point before we got into that, I'm going to focus, I think, for the entire next year on this Christian worldview because I had people in the church come to me before this even started with me and you, and they've been on this kick to where Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses are coming to their house and they don't know how to answer their questions. Well, I need to equip my congregation to be able to respond. And the reason why they can't respond, we can make the argument about catechesis, whatever. It all comes down to a holistic Christian worldview has been lost. And that was ultimately part of what the Masons attempted to do. Because for them to be able to infiltrate, they had to break Christendom.
We're talking about something that's demonic here.
Yes. And you can basically see where their rise started in history overall. They started to gain power after the 30 Years' War and the English Civil War. Because what ends up happening is the 30 Years' War and the English Civil War ends up making the common people sick of these arguments because so many people died. So they start to gain a foothold, and they start with the education system because they realized early on if they could take over the education system, they could shift the entire world. So then you get people like Dewey in America. Do your research into those people and see the connections. Even Darwin and them in England. You see it in the very basis of the Anglo-Catholic movement, because once you get past the Tractarians, I honestly believe after reading QC, reading everybody but Newman, I have questions and think he was involved. But when I read Pusey and the rest of them, I don't agree with them. I share the same opinions you do, but they seem to be coming from some Christian foundation. When you start to get to the next generation, what you see is they fully embrace higher criticism. Higher criticism is the place where the rot really takes hold. Me and you have been back and forth on this before, and I don't want to get into the argument, but it's why I'm not crazy about Warfield. I don't disagree that Warfield was orthodox in his beliefs, but Warfield left a crack in the door by allowing higher critical thinking, by allowing for Darwinistic theory to be allowed to be maybe accepted. And I don't want to necessarily get into the whole in and out about that because I don't consider Warfield to be a heretic. But it's where they get their foot in. It's where the camel gets his nose under the tent, is they start to creep in. And if you want to see how far they've gotten, how many people do you see using the received text of the Bible in scholarly circles anymore?
Oh, good question. Don't know.
The Geneva Bible is the received text.
That's a good book.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say the King James, I could say the Geneva, I could say the Douay Rhymes. All of them come from the received text. They give us the opportunity to be able to have conversations and engage with people. But now everybody's gotten into this critical text. Not only have they gotten into this critical text, Donald, when you were growing up, how many translations existed?
King James was it.
Right. What happened when the RSV came out?
I don't know all the history. I know there was disagreement with it.
Well, it's for two reasons. The RSV abandoned historical principles of translation and embraced the critical text. You got to remember the critical text is nothing more than a cut and paste version of the New Testament. They claim they're drawn from older texts, but they basically sewed together what they wanted of the Bible. And then they have multiple translations. So we get to today and you have your ESV, your NRSV, you have your NIV, you have your New Living, you have your Message, you have your Passion, you have your New King James, you have your NASB. What they're doing with all these translations is opening the door to question the validity of the biblical text altogether.
Okay. I hear what you're saying.
They get into the church, they get into the education system, and they get into politics, and they take what's there and they mold it and they shape it into a vehicle to push forward their ideal world. They want to recreate the world in their own image. When you say they're demonic, they're not demonic, they're Luciferian. Because I'm making that qualification because what they're doing is they are enthroning Satan.
I noticed one of the things I was researching that way up in the higher levels, they have you become a knight of the Golden Dragon.
Yeah, that's in the Scottish Rite. They have all sorts of weird titles, but yeah.
Golden Serpent, I think it is. Golden Serpent. Now, what?
Because the serpent in their philosophy is viewed as a good thing. Because the serpent encouraged Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, so that they might become as gods.
So the more I hear about this, the worse it gets.
But Donald, it's in the air we breathe and people don't see it.
I was talking with someone today, I won't mention his name, but by phone, who's aware of this stuff and how it has penetrated into the Church of England to the highest reaches.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Renee. I'm good. My cleaning lady's come. And he, in talking with him, talked about how it was infiltrated in several of the cathedrals in England, where the cathedrals have annual Masonic services.
Right.
And how they got involved with covering up pedophilia.
Yeah.
In the Church of England, Masons covering for Masons. Even in one case where the dean, when they were being investigated, had all of the papers burned so that they couldn't bring forward convictions against fellow Masons. Right. And this is what my friend is telling me. And he found out that Freemasons were throughout the Free Church of England, so he said. And I lost my train of thought.
No, no, Donald, I want you to put a pin there real quick. The first time me and you got on doing this, I
Oh,
said,
before we go further, he threw in that there are ministers in the ACNA, Anglican Church of North America, that are Masons and ministers.
right.
And
Well, Donald, do you not remember me telling you to start with that Fenwick was a plant from the Church of England into
yeah,
the FCE? How do
yeah.
you think he came across?
How did he come across?
He,
Sneaky.
right, because they're all brothers. And there are Presbyterian ministers that are Masons, and there's Baptist pastors that are Masons, and there's Presbyterian elders that are Masons. And there used to be RCUS, they're now UCC ministers that are Masons. The Lutherans actually have done the best job of keeping them out. I'm not really quite sure,
You're
but
talking about the confessional
the
Lutheran.
confessional Lutherans picked up on this early on.
I would say the same for the confessional Presbyterians, the OPC. They wrote a very good document on that was very influential with me. And you cannot be an elder, office bearer, presbyter, deacon, and be a Mason. Now, they kind of hedge their bet about somebody at a lower level who may not know what's going on. They could be saved, but ignorant. But I think they would preach against Masonry in an OPC church.
I want you to do some running and see how many of them are in the PCA.
Aha. Interesting. I bet it's wider. I don't think the PCA has a statement against it.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, Donald. I ended up with my third major issue that I've been contacted by PCA ministers about yesterday, to where there is now a guy in Nebraska. They run it, it's actually two pastors in Nebraska at a PCA church that basically changed the words of institution and Holy Communion and took out "in remembrance of me" and replaced it in memorial service to me, and teach that Holy Communion is no different than the Jews setting up the stones in the middle of the river as a memorial to their crossing over the Jordan.
Okay.
I pointed out, using the Westminster Larger and Shorter, that that is a violation of their subscription.
Okay.
The PCA is eat up with people who are pastors in the PCA who actively work against their subscription statements because of the Masonic influence.
I have to see evidence for that, but I hear what you're saying.
But see, it's hard to get evidence, Donald, for the simple fact that what do they do?
They're secret.
And they cover for each other.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
That's why the pins and the rings are so important. They'll wear lapel pins. They'll wear rings. They have secret handshakes. They do this because this enables them to identify themselves to each other, and they do it so inconspicuously that the average person that doesn't know what to look for.
Yeah. Like me.
Right. Well, I've got to go, Donald. Are we on for Tuesday?
On for Tuesday, and maybe we'll get back to Sola Scriptura.
Well, Donald, I'm going to tell you, I honestly think, strangely enough, this is God ordained. Not that I don't believe everything's God ordained.
I got you.
This is an important subject that doesn't get talked about in modern circles anymore. All right, we'll see you later, Donald.
Okay, bye.